This is unacceptable.
I decide what is acceptable here. You can't do this as...
The chandelier light fractured across the marble floor, gold spilling over rows of murmuring bidders. At the center, Naomi Caldwell stood frozen, her skin glistening under the spotlight she hadn't asked for. She'd come to bid on a rare sculpture, a piece by a forgotten black artist, but now every whisper in the room coiled around her name. Security, the auctioneer said smoothly, his smile barely shifting. Would you please escort this guest out? This section is for verified patrons only. Her bid card trembled in her hand. Verified. The word cracked like glass in her chest. The man beside her, silver-haired, smirked without looking at her. They're strict here, he murmured. Not everyone fits the donor profile. The guards hesitated, just long enough for the cameras to catch it. Her voice came out low, steady. My transfer cleared 2 hours ago. Check again. But the auctioneer had already moved on. Next lot, an opening at 50,000. Her number, once valid, now meant nothing. The guards took her arm. 1,000 eyes watched her walk out, silence blooming behind her heels. Outside, the wind scraped against her face, hot with shame. A reporter shouted from the steps, Ms. Caldwell, any comment on being removed from the Whitney auction? Her throat tightened. Somewhere inside that sculpture, the one carved from chains, was being sold to someone who'd never understand it. She didn't answer. She just stared at the grand doors as they shut, sealing her out. One line echoed through her mind, cold and absolute. If they can throw me out of what I can afford, then I'll buy what they can't control. And for the first time, she smiled. The auction house smelled of old money, perfume and polished stone. Naomi Caldwell adjusted the cuff of her navy suit, the tailored edges sharp enough to cut glass. Her heels clicked in measured rhythm as she entered the main hall. She'd been in hundreds of boardrooms, but this space felt different, quieter, colder, curated to remind visitors who the walls were built for. Ms. Caldwell, the attendant greeted her. Too bright, too rehearsed. The pause before her name stretched half a second too long. Welcome. If you'll wait here, we'll confirm your credentials. My bid registration was confirmed yesterday. Yes, ma'am, of course. He smiled, disappearing behind a velvet rope. She stood beneath a ceiling mural of pale angels painted by anonymous hands. Around her, clusters of donors chatted over champagne, their laughter a low, synchronized hum. Eyes slid toward her, curious, assessing. She caught fragments of whisper. Tech money. New rich, doesn't know the etiquette. She turned away, focusing on the art catalog. Lot 42, Bound Ascension, iron and marble sculpture circa 1947. She'd read about it years ago, a masterpiece by Ellis Freeman, a black sculptor erased from mainstream art circles. The piece had been missing for decades. She wanted it for the Caldwell Foundation, a museum dedicated to overlooked black artists. This wasn't charity. It was reclamation. The attendant returned, flustered. Ms. Caldwell, could we just step aside for a quick verification? Is there an issue? Not at all. Just protocol. 2 security guards hovered nearby. Naomi's voice dropped. Protocol for who? He didn't answer. A whisper of static hummed through her earpiece, her assistant Zara. Naomi, I'm seeing tweets already. Someone's filming you, she looked up. One phone angled discreetly. Another followed. The auctioneer cleared his throat on stage. Before we begin, a brief reminder. All bids must be verified through pre-approved accounts. His gaze flicked to Naomi, then away. Her chest tightened. I'm a verified bidder, she said, louder than she intended. Silence. A row of men in tuxedos shifted uncomfortably. Please, ma'am, one guard said softly. We don't want a scene. Her laugh came sharp. You already made one, the guard gestured. She didn't move. Call your manager, she said. The auctioneer's voice cut in, smooth, controlled. Security, please escort this guest out. We have a schedule to maintain. Her heels scraped against the marble as they led her toward the exit. Someone whispered, entitlement. Another murmured, unprofessional. Outside, the night air hit like cold water. Flashbulbs burst. Reporters surged forward. Ms. Caldwell, are you being denied entry? Was this racially motivated? Her throat burned. She turned toward the doors, the same doors that had opened for everyone else. Zara's voice crackled again. Do you want me to call the lawyer? Naomi stared at the towering building, its golden insignia gleaming against the dark. No, she said quietly. Not yet. Her reflection in the glass met her eyes. Calm, unbroken. They'll regret making me wait outside. Morning sunlight spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Caldwell Holdings, catching on chrome and glass. Naomi sat at the head of the boardroom table, phone buzzing beside untouched coffee. Every screen in the room displayed the same headline: Black Tech CEO removed from elite auction, Gallery CT's verification issue. Across from her PR director, Damien, shifted uncomfortably. We're controlling the narrative, he began. They've issued an apology. Naomi didn't look up. Show me. He read from his tablet. The gallery regrets a misunderstanding during last night's auction and reaffirms its commitment to diversity and inclusion. Naomi's eyes lifted, flat, cold. That's not an apology. That's an excuse in corporate dialect. Zara, her assistant, frowned. Social media's still on fire. The videos everywhere will have millions of views. Hashtags calling it racial profiling. Damien's tone softened. Then maybe we don't add fuel. Sometimes silence is strategy. Naomi's jaw tightened. Silence is complicity, Damien. And complicity is how they survive, he exhaled. Look, Naomi, I know you're angry. I'm not angry. Her voice sliced the air. I'm calculating. The room froze. She tapped her nails against the table. Once, twice. We built a company that broke every ceiling they said was reinforced. And one auction house, one institution, reminded me they still own the ceiling. Zara hesitated. Should I draft a statement? No, Naomi said. Not yet. I want data first. Who owns them? Who sponsors them? Who profits from that gallery's image of equality? Damien swallowed. You're thinking of going after them? Naomi finally looked up. No, she said. I'm thinking of buying them. The silence that followed wasn't disbelief. It was fear. 2 hours later, Naomi stood alone in her office. The city sprawled below, a grid of wealth and indifference. She scrolled through messages, journalists asking for comments, strangers sending praise, trolls spitting venom. A voicemail blinked red. She pressed play. Ms. Caldwell, this is Robert Lang from the Whitney Auction House. I'd like to personally apologize for last night's incident. We value your patronage. Perhaps we can invite you back for a private showing. Her lips curved. A private showing, she murmured. After they dragged me out in public. Zara entered quietly. You're trending #1. Investors are nervous. Should we reassure them? Naomi shook her head. No, let them sweat. She turned her screen toward Zara. See this? A photo of the sculpture, Bound Ascension. They called it priceless, but they sold it for $70,000. That's less than one of our interns makes in a month. Zara frowned. It's not about the art, is it? Naomi's tone dropped. It's always about the art. Art decides who's remembered and who's erased. Her computer chimed. A new email from a journalist she trusted. Off the record, that sculpture was by Ellis Freeman. His family never saw a dime. The gallery owns his estate. You want to make noise? Start there. Naomi's pulse quickened. Ellis Freeman, the man who'd carved freedom into marble, then died unknown. His legacy, repackaged and sold, she whispered. They erased him and they thought I'd accept being next. Zara watched her carefully. What are you going to do? Naomi closed her laptop. First, I'm going to find his family. Then I'm going to find out who signed that ownership contract. That night, Naomi sat on her balcony overlooking the skyline. City lights shimmered like restless stars. Her phone buzzed again. Another corporate apology request, another hollow invitation. She ignored them all. Instead, she opened the archived file on Freeman's sculpture. The photo was grainy, but the detail was unmistakable. Hands breaking chains, eyes lifted toward unseen light. She thought of the auctioneer's voice, the crowd's silence, the word verified. Her own reflection stared back from the dark window. Resolute, unyielding. They wanted to humiliate me in public, she said softly. So I'll educate them in public. She closed the laptop. Tomorrow, the world would start hearing the name Ellis Freeman again, from her lips. Not theirs. and the gallery that erased him would become the lesson they never saw coming. The neighborhood was quiet, the kind of quiet that carried history instead of peace. Red brick houses leaned with age, paint peeling from forgotten walls. Naomi parked her car beside a rusted streetlight and stepped out, heels clicking against the cracked pavement. Zara followed close behind, tablet in hand. His granddaughter's name is Lila Freeman, she said. She agreed to meet you. Said nobody's ever asked about her grandfather before. Naomi nodded. They never ask about the people who made the art, only the ones who sold it. They stopped in front of a small home with faded blue shutters. The door opened before they could knock. A woman in her late 40s stood there, cautious eyes, calloused hands. You're Ms. Caldwell? Yes, thank you for meeting me. Lila stepped aside. And come in. It's not much, but it's his work that's worth seeing. Inside, the house smelled of dust and oil paint. On the walls hung unfinished sketches. Strong hands, bowed heads, chains rendered in delicate graphite. Naomi felt something tighten in her chest. These were studies for bound ascension. Lila watched her. He never sold those. Said the world wasn't ready to see freedom made beautiful. Naomi moved closer, her voice low. They were ready to steal it, though. Lila smiled bitterly. They always were. They sat at the kitchen table. Lila poured coffee into mismatched mugs. They came after he died, she said. Some lawyer said they were preserving his legacy. We signed papers we didn't understand. They promised exhibitions. We never saw one. Then the sculptures disappeared. Naomi leaned forward. Do you have copies of those papers? Lila nodded slowly. In a box. I kept them. Didn't know if they meant anything anymore. They mean everything. The documents were yellowed. The ink faded but legible. Naomi read each line with cold precision. Transfer of ownership, estate rights, perpetual license clauses. Signatures from lawyers representing the gallery's trust. They stripped him of authorship, she murmured. Lila's voice cracked. He just wanted people to remember him right. Naomi closed the file. They will. Zara glanced up from her tablet. We can prove fraud, coercion at least. The family never got royalties, never consented to reproduction rights. Naomi's tone hardened. Then that auction wasn't just an insult. It was theft. Lila stared at her. You're really going after them? Naomi met her eyes. I don't go after people. I reclaim what belongs to us. They spent hours cataloging sketches, photographs, fragments of clay molds. Naomi felt the weight of history pressing against every page. Freeman's handwriting appeared on the back of a torn envelope. They will not bury me twice. When they finally stepped outside, dusk had settled. Naomi stood on the porch staring at the horizon, factories outlined against an orange sky. Zara broke the silence. You could build a museum around this. His name deserves one. Naomi's voice was quiet but sure. First, I'm taking back the place that sold him. Zara hesitated. Naomi, they'll come after you. They'll protect that system. Naomi looked back at the worn house, the family photographs on the sill, the small light flickering inside. Let them. I'm not fighting for space in their gallery anymore. I'm building my own. Later that night, Naomi stood in her penthouse office overlooking the city, a map of power glowing beneath her feet. The Freeman documents lay spread across the desk, legal markers and notes scrawled in her handwriting. She called her attorney, Richard Cole, a man with too much experience in cleaning corporate stains. Richard, she said without preamble, how long would it take to form a holding company large enough to purchase the Whitmore Art Collective? He paused. Depends on liquidity, why? I'm done asking for entry, he sighed. You're serious. I was escorted out of a building for being the wrong kind of bidder. Now I'm buying the roof over their heads. A long silence. Then, you'll need leverage. I already have it, Naomi said. Proof of exploitation. Ownership documents. A family willing to speak. Then you'll make enemies. Naomi's eyes didn't leave the skyline. Good. That means they'll remember me. The next morning, headlines shifted. Ellis Freeman's lost works resurface. Possible estate fraud under investigation. Social feeds buzzed. Commentators debated heritage and reparations. The gallery's official account went silent. Naomi sat back in her chair watching the chaos unfold. Her reflection glimmered in the screen, calm, deliberate, unflinching. Lila's words echoed in her mind. He just wanted people to remember him right. They will, Naomi whispered. And they'll remember who made them look. The boardroom at Ridgeway Capital smelled of cigars and quiet arrogance. A mahogany table stretched between Naomi and 6 men who had never once been told no. Each carried the kind of wealth that assumed its own permanence. Naomi adjusted the sleeve of her charcoal suit. Gaze steady. I'm offering a direct acquisition, she said. Full buyout of the Whitmore Art Collective and its subsidiaries. The man at the head of the table, Charles Haynes, a banker known for his smooth condescension, leaned back, fingers steepled. You understand what you're proposing, Ms. Caldwell? Yes, to purchase them outright. A chuckle rippled through the room. Haynes smiled, almost kind. Forgive me, but you're talking about an institution with 100 years of donor history. You can't buy legacy, Naomi didn't blink. You can when it's bankrupt beneath the branding. That silenced him. She slid a folder across the table. Inside, leaked financials, lawsuits, and unpaid artist royalties. Numbers that could ruin reputations. Haynes flipped through the pages, his expression tightening. Where did you get this? From people who stopped believing your institutions protect them. He closed the folder slowly. This is extortion. No, Naomi said evenly. This is disclosure. I'm giving you a chance to sell before the truth becomes public record. A younger board member spoke up, nervous. You're serious about this? Naomi's eyes moved to him, sharp and quiet. I don't bluff with generational repair. Outside the conference room, Zara waited with her phone in hand. That went. Tense, she murmured. They expected fear, Naomi said, striding toward the elevator. They confuse politeness with submission. Zara caught up. Do you think they'll sell? They'll pretend not to. Then they'll call their lawyers. Then they'll call me back. As the elevator doors closed, Naomi's reflection stared back, and not angry, just resolute. By evening, news had started to shift. Anonymous leaks about Whitmore's financial instability surfaced on art blogs. Whispers of internal misconduct trailed behind. Naomi sat in her office, reviewing data. The door opened without a knock. Damien stepped in, pale and uneasy. You're making enemies in very high places, he said quietly. They're calling investors, threatening to pull funding from your foundation. Naomi didn't look up. They'll bluff. And if they don't, then they'll expose their fear faster. Damien exhaled. You can't wage a war on the entire establishment. I'm not waging war, Naomi said. I'm correcting the record. He hesitated. They won't forgive you for embarrassing them. She met his eyes finally. Forgiveness is a privilege I stopped chasing. Later that night, Naomi met with an art critic, Marisol Grant, in a dim cafe far from downtown. Marisol stirred her tea slowly. I heard you're planning to buy the gallery that threw you out. Bold even for you. Naomi's tone was dry. Bold is a word people use when they mean threatening. Marisol smirked. Fair. You should know, they're already preparing counter-narratives. They'll call you emotional, vindictive, a diversity stunt. Naomi leaned back. Then I'll give them what they fear most, numbers, records, names. Marisol studied her. You could ruin them. Or they could ruin you. Both outcomes fix the imbalance, Naomi said. The next morning, her prediction came true. Her phone rang before dawn of an unknown number. Miss Caldwell? It was Haynes. His voice was measured, but the veneer was cracking. The board is willing to consider an offer under certain conditions. Naomi's voice stayed calm. Conditions? Discretion, no press. No statements implying misconduct. Naomi smiled faintly. You mean no truth, he hesitated. You'll make a lot of enemies if you keep pushing this narrative. I already have, she said. Now I'm just making them visible. That afternoon, Zara entered Naomi's office with 2 folders, one marked purchase draft, the other press leak. Zara hesitated. Which one do we use first? Naomi stared at both. Her pulse was steady, her mind clear. Both. Let them chase shadows while I buy the ground under their feet. By sunset, the storm had begun. Social feeds filled with headlines. Whitmore's financial collapse rumors surface amid. CEO's alleged takeover attempt. Naomi Caldwell reportedly targeted after exposing racial bias in art world. The gallery's PR issued another hollow statement. The damage was done. Naomi watched the reports on screen, the hum of city lights behind her. Zara spoke softly. You know what he said in that meeting? Haynes? Naomi glanced over. What? He said. You want to buy a gallery that won't even let you in? Naomi's eyes hardened, her voice barely a whisper. Exactly. The conference room of Whitmore Holdings gleamed like a museum. Glass, steel, and silence carefully arranged to intimidate. Naomi's heels broke that silence as she entered, flanked by her legal counsel and Zara. Across the table, the board members waited, eyes sharp with polite hostility. The chairman, Edgar Blythe, smiled with the ease of a man certain of his superiority. Ms. Caldwell, he said, voice dripping civility, thank you for your interest. We're surprised by your enthusiasm, Naomi set her folder down. You won't be for long. Her lawyer, Richard, began distributing documents. Our client proposes a full purchase of Whitmore Art Collective, including the auction subsidiary, for $182 million. Liquid. A murmur swept the table. Blythe laughed softly. That's adorable. Naomi didn't flinch. That's fair market value based on your last audit minus hidden liabilities. Hidden liabilities? His brow lifted. She slid another envelope forward. Unpaid artist royalties. Unreported tax write-offs. 3 discrimination complaints suppressed under NDA. Shall I continue? The laughter vanished. A woman at the far end of the table cleared her throat. This information is sensitive. Where did you get it? Naomi met her gaze. From the people you silenced. Blythe leaned back, mask cracking just enough to reveal irritation. You can't come into my boardroom and it's not your boardroom anymore, Naomi said, cutting through him. You lost control the moment you decided humiliation was policy. For a long beat, nobody moved. Then Blythe smiled again, brittle. Ms. Caldwell, let's be realistic. You think a scandal and a few online sympathizers can topple an institution like Whitmore? Naomi leaned forward, voice low. I think legacy means nothing when it's built on stolen names. Outside, Zara exhaled hard as the elevator doors closed. You just dropped a bomb in there. I gave them a choice, Naomi said. Sell quietly or burn publicly. Do you think they'll listen? They'll panic first. Then they'll leak. Then the public decides, Zara frowned. That's risky, Naomi's tone was flat. Truth always is. By evening, exactly as she predicted, the leak began. A whistleblower, anonymous but perfectly timed, posted internal documents online. Screenshots of emails between executives mocking the diversity optics, internal memos describing Naomi as unverified patron. The internet erupted. Within hours, the story jumped platforms. Gallery executives mock Black CEO in private emails. Doesn't belong in our spaces. Talk shows dissected it. Journalists hunted for more. The same outlets that ignored her humiliation now fought for interviews. Damien stormed into her office, panic in his voice. Naomi, this is out of control. We didn't leak those documents, right? Naomi didn't look up from her laptop. We didn't have to. Truth leaks itself when the structure's rotten. Still, this is war. They'll sue. They won't, she said. They'll settle, quietly. Why are you so sure? Because they know what's still in my folder. Hours later, her phone buzzed. Private number, Ms. Caldwell. Blythe's voice rasped through the line. You've made your point. What do you want? Naomi let the silence stretch. Ownership. You can't possibly, and I already have the capital. Now I have the leverage. I want your resignation and every seat that's signed off on that auction transferred under my acquisition terms. Otherwise, tomorrow's headline reads, Gallery profited from stolen black art. You're blackmailing me. No, she said quietly. I'm correcting you. The line went dead. The next morning, Whitmore's stock value nosedived. Sponsors withdrew. A leaked resignation letter circulated. Edgar Blythe, stepping down for personal reasons. Naomi watched it unfold on her screen. No smile, no triumph. Just confirmation. Zara walked in holding a news alert. They're calling you the woman who bought her seat back. Naomi closed her laptop. Good, let them think it's about a seat. Zara tilted her head. It's not? Naomi looked out the window. No, it's about the table itself. That night, Naomi met with Lila Freeman again. Same small kitchen, same dim lamp. Lila looked at her, hesitant. You really did it? Almost, Naomi said. They'll sign by Friday. Lila smiled weakly. You didn't have to do this for him. Naomi shook her head. I didn't do it for him. I did it because of him. She reached into her bag and placed a folder on the table, the final transfer papers. When I own it, the first act will be to return bound ascension to your family. Lila's eyes filled, voice trembling. He'd have liked you, Naomi exhaled slowly. He'd have hated that I had to do this. They sat in silence, the weight of decades pressing between them. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. Naomi's phone buzzed. Another notification. Breaking Naomi Caldwell's offer for Whitmore Gallery, officially under review. Zara's voice came through a message. They're calling it a hostile takeover. Naomi looked toward the storm-dark sky, her reflection flickering in the glass. Hostile? She whispered. They don't know what that word means yet. 3 weeks later, a convoy of black cars lined the cobblestone street in front of Whitmore Gallery. Reporters crowded behind the barricades, cameras flashing like lightning. The marble steps, where Naomi had once been denied entry, were now covered in a crimson carpet. But this time it wasn't for a gala. It was for her. Naomi stepped out of the car in a tailored cream suit. The wind caught her braids as she lifted her chin, eyes fixed on the building. A building that once symbolized rejection. Today it was her signature on the deed. Ms. Caldwell, is it true you now own the entire Whitmore Holdings Group? A reporter shouted. Naomi paused, turning just enough for the cameras. I own its future, she said. The flashbulbs went wild. Inside, the boardroom was full again, only the faces had changed. Blythe was gone. The portraits of former directors were gone too, replaced by minimalist canvases and clean white walls. The remaining executives waited, silent and uneasy. Naomi walked to the head of the table and placed a single key on the polished surface. This was the master key to the director's office, she said. It used to unlock every door in this building. From today, the locks are being changed. One of the men, older, nervous, cleared his throat. Ms. Caldwell, I understand your intent to restructure, but you're dismantling tradition. Naomi's eyes were steady. Tradition is not an excuse for exclusion. I'm not dismantling it, I'm rewriting it. She slid a document toward him. Effective immediately, Whitmore Holdings will be rebranded as the Caldwell Foundation for Global Arts. Our focus will be on inclusive curation, equal artist representation, and reparative patronage. The man blinked. Reparative. Patronage. Payback, Naomi said simply. To every artist whose work you underpriced, buried, or claimed ownership of. A ripple went through the room. Some frowned. Others exchanged uncertain looks. Naomi leaned forward. You have two options. Stay and help me rebuild this into something just, or leave and be remembered as part of what destroyed it. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, Naomi walked alone through the empty exhibition hall. Her footsteps echoed softly over the marble. She stopped in front of a painting she'd had returned from storage, Bound Ascension by Horace Freeman. The canvas was alive with color, chains turning into vines, bodies lifting toward a sunrise painted in gold. Naomi whispered. You're home. Zara entered quietly behind her. The press is still outside. They want a quote. Naomi smiled faintly. Tell them the art speaks louder. Zara nodded but hesitated. And the others? The ones who mocked you? Naomi's tone was even. They'll see the new invitation list soon. If they want in, they'll buy tickets like everyone else. The next morning, social media exploded. Your Caldwell Foundation launch trended worldwide. Headlines read, From humiliation to ownership, Naomi Caldwell buys the gallery that rejected her. History reverses at Whitmore First Black. Woman CEO redefines the art world. TV anchors debated it. Commentators called it poetic justice. But for Naomi, it wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. The grand reopening took place 2 weeks later. The gallery gleamed under warm lights, but its atmosphere had changed. Instead of crystal chandeliers and silent whispers, there was music. Low, soulful jazz that filled the space with life. Guests walked through the exhibits, each labeled with artist names once erased by history. At the center, Bound Ascension hung beneath a single spotlight. Lila Freeman stood beside it, trembling with emotion. He never got to see this, she whispered. Naomi placed a hand on her shoulder. But the world will. Lila smiled through tears. Thank you, Naomi nodded. Thank him. He painted the future. Midway through the evening, Damien approached her, glass in hand. You did it, he said quietly. You really changed the narrative. Naomi turned toward the hall where journalists photographed artists, not investors. Not the narrative, she corrected. The ownership, he smirked. You're trending higher than half the tech CEOs right now. Naomi's voice softened. Let them trend. I'm here to last. Later during her speech, she stood at the podium. When I walked into this gallery months ago, she began, I was told I didn't belong. This art wasn't mine to understand. Today I stand not as a guest, but as a guardian. The crowd fell silent. This foundation will never measure artists by lineage, accent, or skin tone. It will measure them by vision. Because art is not inherited, it's shared. Applause broke out, thunderous and long. Cameras flashed, tears glimmered, and somewhere in the back Lila whispered a prayer. Naomi looked up toward bound ascension. For the first time she felt light. Not triumph, not revenge, just peace. As the night ended, Naomi stepped outside alone. The city air was cool. Reporters shouted questions, but she ignored them. Across the street stood the small cafe where she'd sat that humiliating night. Still open, still ordinary. She smiled faintly. Her driver approached. Home, Ms. Caldwell? Naomi looked back at the building, her building glowing behind her like a beacon. Not yet, she said softly. I'm already home. She turned, the camera lights flickering across her face like stars, and walked down the street. Calm, unbothered, free. A month after the grand reopening, Naomi's name dominated headlines. Investors wanted in, artists wanted exposure, and the public hailed her as a symbol of change. But beneath the praise came the backlash. Anonymous letters, online campaigns, articles questioning her ethics and background. It started with whispers. Then came the phone call. Ms. Caldwell, Zara said, voice tight. We received a legal notice. Whitmore's former CFO is suing you for unlawful acquisition. He claims insider trading during the buyout. Naomi didn't flinch, but her stomach twisted. He's bluffing, Zara hesitated. He attached evidence. Naomi stood silent, staring at the framed painting across her office, bound ascension. The vines climbing, unbreaking. Then we fight. Days later, the courtroom was full again. Cameras flashed as Naomi entered, calm but cold. The same world that once mocked her now watched her like prey. Across the aisle sat Richard Devereaux, the former CFO. Pale suit, smug smile. The man who'd signed off on dozens of underpriced artist sales and vanished when the scandal broke. His attorney rose. Your Honor, Ms. Caldwell used privileged information to acquire the company at below market value. Naomi's attorney countered. The purchase was public and audited. What's truly at issue here is the exposure of systemic exploitation. Murmurs rippled through the court. Richard leaned toward his lawyer, whispering, but Naomi caught his glance. It was the same look Blythe once gave her, that cold, entitled disbelief that someone like her could own what they once ruled. The judge banged the gavel. We'll proceed with evidence. As documents flashed on the courtroom screen, Naomi's pulse steadied. The emails, bank transfers, internal memos, all threads connecting Richard to a laundering network hidden under art restoration grants. Zara sat behind her, watching. Damien leaned forward in the second row, whispering to the press. The trap had reversed. Naomi spoke for the first time. Your Honor, this man didn't lose his power when the company changed hands. He abused it until it became untraceable. The attorney tried to interrupt. Naomi continued, voice sharp. I didn't steal Whitmore. I cleaned it. Gasps filled the courtroom. The judge motioned for order, but Naomi had already done what she came to do. Speak the truth in front of every camera that once looked down on her. Hours later, the verdict was announced. The court found Richard guilty of falsifying financial statements and laundering funds through art donations. His countersuit was dismissed. Naomi won. Officially, legally, undeniably. But when the reporters swarmed her outside, she didn't smile. Ms. Caldwell, do you feel vindicated? Naomi paused. Vindication implies I was wronged once. I've been wronged 1,000 times. Today isn't victory. It's survival. She pushed through the crowd, her driver shielding her from microphones and flashes. That night, she sat alone in her penthouse office overlooking the city. The skyline shimmered through the glass. Her reflection stared back, tired eyes, flawless suit, steady breath. Damien entered quietly. You did it again. Naomi looked out the window. It never ends, does it? He sighed. Not yet. Silence. Then she said, "Do you ever wonder what happens after justice? When the fight's over and you're still standing, but nothing feels different inside?" Damien didn't answer. She continued, voice low. "They took my dignity once. I took back my power. But the wound, it doesn't close," he nodded slowly. "Maybe it's not meant to. Maybe it's what keeps the world honest." Naomi turned from the window, or haunted. The next day she returned to the gallery. The staff stood straighter when she passed. Artists smiled. But something in her walk had changed. Less fire, more gravity. She stopped before Bound Ascension again. Zara approached. "You missed the press conference." "I didn't miss it," Naomi said softly. "I declined it," Zara frowned. "Why?" "The world's finally listening." Naomi looked at the painting, then let it listen to the silence. Weeks passed. The Caldwell Foundation expanded globally. Grants opened for underrepresented artists. Exhibits traveled to cities that once refused them, but Naomi rarely appeared. Her speeches were replaced by statements. Her name, now legend, became symbol more than person. Late one evening, she walked through the dim gallery alone. Only one light remained on, the spotlight over Bound Ascension. She whispered, "You were right, Horace. The climb never ends." Her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "We're not done with you yet." She stared at the words, then deleted them. Outside, thunder rolled over the city. The next morning, an art magazine ran a cover story. Naomi Caldwell, the woman who redefined power and paid the price. Inside, a quote from Naomi read, "You can buy the gallery. You can rewrite the rules, but you can't unteach a world to look away. That's the real work." That night, Naomi sat in the gallery's main hall as the storm raged outside. She watched the lights flicker across the marble and whispered to herself, "Justice is never a destination. It's a renovation." Her reflection shimmered on the glass beside Bound Ascension. Lightning flashed, then darkness. Months passed. The storm that had once surrounded Naomi slowly quieted. The headlines shifted to other scandals, other names. But her gallery, her foundation, kept working, expanding, repairing. Each morning, Naomi walked through its sunlit halls, past the walls that now bore art from Ghana, Haiti, Harlem, Karachi. The paintings spoke to each other like long-separated family members reunited under one roof. But something inside her was dimming. The weight of constant vigilance, the endless defense of her legitimacy, it had taken a toll. Zara noticed it first. "You don't come to openings anymore," she said one afternoon, stepping into Naomi's office. Naomi didn't look up from her desk. "They don't need me there. The art speaks louder without me explaining it," Zara frowned. "People still need to see you. You built this," Naomi closed her notebook. "I didn't build it to be seen. I built it so others could be." That evening, she stood before a crowd of young artists gathered for the Foundation's new mentorship program. They were from everywhere. Students, immigrants, dreamers who carried sketches in worn portfolios and paint under their nails. Naomi stepped onto the stage. No notes in hand, no teleprompter. Just her voice. "When I stood where you are," she said, "I was told I wasn't part of the narrative. That my ideas were too loud, too political, too different." A quiet murmur rippled through the room. "They were wrong," she continued. "Difference is the signature of creation. It's what makes art necessary." She looked across the faces, young, eager, hungry, and smiled faintly. "I won't tell you to fight like I did. I'll tell you to build what they said couldn't exist. That's how you win." The room erupted in applause. Some cried. Naomi just nodded once, quietly leaving the stage. Later that night, she sat alone in her office again, gazing at the city lights. Her phone buzzed with messages from reporters, partners, invitations to conferences and awards. She ignored them all. Her focus had shifted inward. The desk in front of her was covered in sketches for a new project, the Archive of the Silenced, a digital, open-access museum dedicated to artists erased by prejudice and policy. Damien entered carrying 2 coffees. "Still working?" "Always," Naomi said. He studied her expression. "This one feels different, not about proving anything." Naomi looked at him. "Because I'm done proving. This isn't for me." "Then for who?" She smiled softly. "For whoever comes next." so they never have to start where I did. Weeks later, the archive's announcement went live. It broke the internet. Naomi Caldwell to launch world's first reparative art archive. From rejection to revolution, Caldwell's legacy project unveiled. Donations poured in from museums, universities, and independent artists, and for the first time, Naomi didn't attend the press conference. Instead, she watched it from a quiet bench inside her gallery, sipping tea as a young black curator named Aisha gave the speech in her place. She taught us, Aisha said from the podium, that justice isn't an award, it's a blueprint. We're just following it. Naomi smiled at the screen, whispering, "Good." Later that day, she visited Bound Ascension again. The light from the skylight poured across the canvas. The colors seemed warmer now, more forgiving. Lila Freeman, the painter's daughter, stood beside her. "He would have been proud," she said softly. Naomi nodded. "He already is. His work outlasted the people who tried to bury it." Lila hesitated. "And you? What happens after all this?" Naomi exhaled. "I disappear. The work stays. Months turned to a year. The archive launched. The gallery became a hub of diversity and renewal. Naomi stepped further from public view, content to let others lead. One morning, a group of students on a tour paused near Bound Ascension. Their guide pointed to the small bronze plaque beneath it. Dedicated to Naomi Caldwell, who turned rejection into inheritance. The students whispered to each other. "Is she still alive?" one asked. The guide smiled. "Alive, yes. But she prefers the background. She says art needs less noise, more witness." Naomi, standing quietly at the back, heard it. She smiled unseen and slipped out before the tour turned her way. That evening, she stood on the gallery's rooftop terrace overlooking the city as dusk painted the sky. She thought of her father's calloused hands, of her mother's warnings, of every door that had once been shut. She whispered to the wind, "They built walls. I built windows." Below her, the gallery light shimmered like stars against glass. Zara joined her. "The board wants to name the next exhibit after you." Naomi shook her head. "No names. Just stories." Zara looked at her, eyes glistening. "You know you changed everything, right?" Naomi turned toward the horizon. "No," she said quietly. "I just made the world notice what was already brilliant." Later that night, alone again, she turned off the office lights and walked through the gallery one last time. Her heels echoed softly against marble. She paused before Bound Ascension. Her reflection merged with the figures on the canvas, rising, reaching, unbroken. Naomi smiled faintly. "We made it." She turned, pushed open the door, and stepped into the morning light. The gallery glowed behind her,